The story opens with old folk tales about people born with an extraordinary gift for music. Their melodies were said to be so pure they could cross the boundaries of time, summoning spirits from both the past and the future. These sounds could bring hope, yet they also carried the power to invite darkness. Some called such musicians healers, while others warned of evil forces drawn to their talent. Against this backdrop, the tale moves to 1932 in the hot Mississippi Delta, where racial tensions ran high and music often mingled with violence. Here we meet Sammy Moore, a young black man and gifted blues guitarist, the son of Reverend Jedediah Moore, who led a white congregation. One October morning, Sammy entered his father's church with a bruised face and carrying only the broken neck of his guitar. Alarmed, his father urged him to give up music, warning that it could lead to drinking, temptation, and even the devil's influence. But Sammy, who felt most alive when his fingers touched the strings, only tightened his grip on the broken guitar neck. He had no idea where that choice would lead. This is Sinners. To understand how this moment came to be, we turn back to the day before. That was when Sammy's cousins Elijah Smoke Moore and Elias Stackmore returned to Clarksdale after 7 years in Chicago. Both were World War I veterans who had later worked for the Capone Syndicate. They came back with stolen money and crates of Irish beer, eager to invest in their hometown. They purchased an old sawmill from a racist ex-Ku Klux Klan member named Hogwood, with plans to turn it into a bar that would serve as a haven for the black community. Their vision included making Sammy the main performer, giving the people both pride and strength during the harsh Jim Crow era. Smoke took charge of business matters, quickly reconnecting with Grace and Bo Chow, shop owners and old friends, who agreed to help with the sign and supply drinks. When 2 young men tried to rob him, Smoke shot them in the legs, cementing his reputation as a man not to be crossed. He hired the Chows to manage the bar and even offered drink discounts to draw in customers. Meanwhile, Stack focused on recruiting musicians. Sammy's blues playing impressed him immediately, and he offered him the spot without hesitation. He also persuaded Delta Slim, a well-known pianist and heavy drinker, by promising $40 a night and unlimited beer. Cornbread, an old friend working in the cotton fields, joined as the doorman. It was during these preparations that Mary appeared. A light-skinned woman of mixed heritage, she had been a childhood friend to the twins and once dated Stack. She had just lost her mother, a midwife who had cared for the twins years earlier. Hurt that they had missed the funeral, Mary confronted them. Stack admitted he still loved her but feared their relationship was too risky in a racist society. Even so, they agreed to meet again that evening at the club's grand opening. On the other side of town, Smoke paid a visit to Annie, his ex-wife and a skilled voodoo practitioner. Years earlier, the loss of their daughter had shattered their marriage, yet their connection had never fully faded. Annie believed her voodoo had shielded Smoke and Stack during their dangerous years in Chicago, and now she placed protective charms around the sawmill they had recently purchased. Later, Smoke stood at his daughter's grave, remembering the days before tragedy had taken her, then asked Annie to work as a cook at the bar. She hesitated, but her lingering love for him and her desire to help the community finally made her agree. That same evening, a pale-faced Irishman named Remick came running through the dark streets, his face etched with fear. He sought refuge at the home of Bert and Joan, a white couple who were devoted members of the Ku Klux Klan. Offering them gold coins in exchange for shelter, he claimed he was being chased by Indians. Bert let him inside, but members of the nearby Choctaw tribe, passing by, warned Joan that Remick was dangerous. She ignored their caution. Once inside, Remick revealed sharp fangs, sank them into Bert and Joan, and turned them into vampires.
Hey, baby.
When opening night finally arrived, the once gloomy sawmill had been transformed into a vibrant music club alive with lights, laughter, and the hum of anticipation. Guests arrived in their best clothes, and the air was rich with the smell of fried fish, homemade bourbon, and freshly poured beer. Smoke and Stack welcomed everyone warmly, even accepting plantation-issued script to support local cotton farmers. Mary arrived soon after and was greeted like family, despite the club being intended for black patrons. Nearby, Perline, a young married woman, struck up a conversation with Sammy, and it was clear from their glances and smiles that they were drawn to each other. When Sammy stepped onto the stage, his blues guitar filled the room with an almost supernatural energy.
Something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. Somebody take me in your arms tonight.
His music wove visions into the minds of the crowd, African spirit dancers, futuristic guitarists, and spinning Chinese dancers. The air felt so charged it was as if the walls themselves might catch fire, yet no one wanted to stop dancing. Outside, Remick arrived with his 2 new vampires, Bert and Joan, carrying Irish instruments and feigning an interest in performing. Smoke, however, caught sight of their unnaturally red eyes and sensed the darkness clinging to them. Even when they offered money, he refused to let them in. Mary, curious and aware that the club's finances were tight, stepped outside to hear them play. At first, their Irish folk singing caught her interest, but when Remic's eyes blazed red and drool spilled from his mouth, she realized the truth. She tried to escape, yet Remic seized her and bit her neck. When she returned, her face was pale, her lips stained a deep crimson. With a strange magnetic charm, she distracted Smoke before drawing Stack into a back room. There, she seduced him and then sank her fangs into his neck. When Smoke went looking for his brother, he found Mary drinking Stack's blood. In horror, he fired at her. But the bullets had no effect. Mary only laughed, threatened to kill everyone inside, and vanished into the night. Panic swept through the club. Smoke and Delta Slim urged guests to leave, but outside, chaos had already begun. Bert and Joan were attacking departing patrons, including Bo Chow. Cornbread stumbled back inside with a vacant expression, pleading to be let in. Because they wouldn't let him in, Cornbread suddenly grabbed Smoke's arm, nearly biting him, but Smoke quickly shot Cornbread and realized that he had turned into a vampire. Moments later, Stack, dead only minutes earlier, rose from a closet and tried to get inside.
Please, Smoke, let me out of this room. Smoke, please.
Annie hurled pickled garlic at him, forcing him to retreat. Looking out the windows, they saw the horrifying truth. Many of their guests had already turned. Not long after, the survivors heard a knock at the door. Standing outside was Remic, flanked by Mary, the newly turned Stack, and Bert and Joan. His arrival came with a revelation. Remic explained that he knew the truth about Hogwood, the sawmill's former owner. Hogwood was not just a bitter ex-landlord, but a high-ranking leader of the Ku Klux Klan. He had deliberately sold the sawmill so that he and the Klan, led by his nephew Bert, could use its reopening as an opportunity to attack the club and slaughter its black guests. Although Remic was a vampire, he wanted no part of the Klan's racist beliefs. Instead, he was drawn to something entirely different, Sammy's music, which he believed could summon ancestral spirits. Remic then made his offer. He promised the survivors immortality, claiming that as vampires they could live forever and never again be oppressed. His tone darkened when he added that if they refused, he would take Lisa, the teenage daughter of Grace and Bo. The group's answer was swift. They turned him down. The refusal marked the beginning of a brutal fight.
We gotta get them before they get away.
Smoke, Sammy, Annie, Delta Slim, Perline, and Grace armed themselves with garlic, wooden stakes, silver knives, and pistols. Annie explained in a steady voice that vampires could only be killed by stabbing the heart or burning them in sunlight. Slim, ever the showman, cut his own arm and danced outside to lure the attackers away. Grace faced her husband Bo, who had already turned. Tears streamed down her face as she drove a stake into his heart, the flames consuming them both. Perline fought alongside Sammy until Bert sank his fangs into her. She collapsed in Sammy's arms and died moments later. Slim, surrounded by enemies, chose to detonate a cache of fuel, taking many vampires with him in the explosion. Inside, the situation grew desperate. Annie was captured by Mary and bitten. Realizing her fate was sealed, she pleaded with Smoke to end her life before she turned. With a heavy heart, he granted her wish, watching as her expression softened and her body turned to ash. For a moment, Mary and Stack appeared shaken by her death. But grief gave way to violence when Stack lunged at Smoke. The brothers fought savagely, their struggle overturning tables and splintering chairs. Meanwhile, outside, Remic hunted Sammy. His claws slashed across Sammy's face, leaving a scar that would never fade. In the chaos, Sammy spotted the twins' old guitar, its body inlaid with silver. Driven by desperation, he swung it with all his strength, smashing it into Remic's head. The vampire howled in agony, giving Smoke the opening he needed. Without hesitation, Smoke drove a stake deep into Remic's chest. As dawn broke, sunlight poured across the battlefield. Remic and the other vampires were reduced to ash in moments. Stack was caught in the light and burned away. Mary slipped into the shadows and vanished. When the dust settled, Smoke knew the clan would not let this night go unanswered. He turned to Sammy and told him to take the guitar and head north, to protect his gift and his life. Smoke stayed behind, loading his weapons and preparing for the inevitable. When dozens of armed clansmen appeared, he hid in the tall grass and opened fire, cutting many down. A grenade blast tore through their ranks. Even after being shot in the stomach, he kept fighting until only Hogwood remained. Hogwood tried to buy his life with cash, but Smoke answered with a bullet. As his vision dimmed, he saw Annie and their daughter bathed in light. A faint smile crossed his face before he breathed his last. Sammy returned to his father's church, the silver-lined guitar still in hand. His father urged him once more to give up music, but Sammy refused. Without looking back, he left for the north, determined to follow his calling. As he traveled, he thought about the night of blood and song, realizing that his music was more than art, it was a living bond to his ancestors. Years later, in 1992, an elderly Sammy stood on the stage of a Chicago blues club. His hair was white, but his hands still moved with the same skill and passion. After his set, two figures approached through the crowd, Stack and Mary, unchanged by time. Stack revealed that on that night so many years ago, Smoke could not bring himself to kill his brother. Instead, he told Stack to keep away from Sammy so that he could live freely. Now, after all these years, they had come to see him. Stack offered him the chance to become a vampire, to play music forever. Sammy smiled gently and declined, saying he had lived his life fully and would leave when his time came. He played one final song for them. Stack and Mary listened in silence, remembering the night before the bloodshed when music had united them all. Sammy kept playing, his notes rich with memory, until the end of his days, carrying with him the bittersweet truth that music, love, and family could endure even beyond death.
Take care, little Sammy.
So the moral of the story is, if a mysterious pale stranger with red eyes offers you immortality, just say no and keep your garlic close. Oh, and maybe don't mix live blues with bloodsuckers.